Welcome back. This is Steph from Cold Blooded Freaks. In today's episode, since we have egg laying season around the corner for us, we're going to show you guys how we put together our egg bins. First, we're going to go over all the supplies you will need to be able to make these egg bins. First up is the bin itself. This is an 8-quart shoebox from Sterilite. I got mine from Walmart, but I do know that you can get them on Amazon as well. I have had these bins for many years at this point. I clean them and sterilize them. It's super easy. It keeps everything very clean and sterile, which I very much like because I don't want any bacteria or fungus or anything like that to grow in these bins while you're doing the incubation process. So I start with a very clean, fresh bin. I make sure that the lid is nice and clean as well. And then one of the other items that I do get, you can get these from Home Depot, Lowe's, any of like the outdoor kind of companies, they have these. This is a light diffusing panel. Now they usually come in a very large sheet that you can cut down to size to fit inside of your egg bin. This is what separates the eggs from the actual substrate that I use to keep the eggs humid. And the substrate that we use is perlite, so I will show you that as well. This is a giant bag that you can also get from Walmart or Home Depot, Lowe's, or Amazon. This is perlite. I like to get the large chunky perlite because the bigger chunks kind of sit better for me. You can get really, really fine perlite, which I don't like as much. It is a little dusty, so I do kind of recommend just giving it a rinse down before you bring it into your house because it might be very, very dusty. The company I use is this Figaro one, but there are other brands that you can absolutely use. I've used some other kinds in the past that work just as well. But like I said, just look at the size of each granular. So once you have those items, something else you're going to want to pick up is, this is up to you, this is all preference, but I personally think that this is very important for keeping in the humidity of each box. And I'll show you how I apply this as well a little bit later in this episode, but this is press and seal wrap. This stuff just seals very nicely along the top of the bin and make sure that there's no humidity that is lost during the incubation process. So right here I have a bin that I've already filled up a little bit with the perlite. And in this bin you can see that it is a little dusty, but you have these nice chunky big pieces and it's not so much of the fine dusty stuff. So I put about half of the bin filled with the perlite itself and I give it a good shake just to kind of even it out just a little bit here. And then I'm going to add my water. Now, this is all preference, but this is just kind of what I do. I add warm water since it's going into my incubator and it needs to warm up anyway, especially if you're going to be putting a clutch on it immediately. I would recommend putting in warm water. It's maybe just a preference, but over the last 10 plus years of doing it, it's just the way I do it. And I haven't changed it because it doesn't seem to have any issues. I never have rotting eggs unless the egg is not fertile. So now we will add our water. And some people have a science to this and some people don't. I am one of the people that do not have a science to it. I pretty much eyeball it. So as I pour it, you can see the water actually come up from underneath. And because it doesn't get absorbed by the perlite kind of mixes with it, if you will. And you don't want to oversaturate it, but all of a sudden you're going to see your perlite at the top level kind of lift. And to me, that is a sign that you are getting close to having the exact amount that you need. So this is where I will push everything down and kind of smooth everything out a little bit here. And one of the signs that I know that I am getting close to having the perfect amount of water is that if I push and there's water that I push down, it comes up a little bit, that means I'm getting very close to having the appropriate amount of water. So I'm just going to add a little bit more. All right, so now it's nice and loose and semi-floating a little bit here. And if you see, you could see how it kind of rocks back and forth. It's very loose substrate now. So this is where you add your light diffusing grid that you cut to fit the actual bin. So I will take this, and just to make sure that we don't have too much water, I push it all the way down as hard as I can, and none of the water comes up above that grid. So then I'll pull it back up, give it a little tight adjustment down, and then you're all good for your eggs. This grate is super important because this keeps the eggs close to the moisture but not touching it, because ball python eggs need to breathe and be in humidity, but they can't be wet. If your eggs do get wet, unfortunately, it can cause molding to happen and could actually kill your growing baby snake. So we don't want that to happen. So doing this is very helpful to keep them away from direct contact with any of the actual water. Something else I do when I do get eggs is I separate my eggs from one another. Sometimes they're in this mound and they're very sticky and stuck together, and they are hard to remove from each other. If the female has laid the eggs within a certain amount of hours, you're actually able to remove them from each other easily. Some people feel that you shouldn't have to do this. Other people do it all the time. It's kind of your preference and how comfortable you are doing it. Sometimes I will get a clutch of eggs that I absolutely cannot separate. It's been too long in the day. They might have laid them in the morning. I get home from work and I can't separate all of them. So when you have those higher mounding clutches, you need a little bit of a deeper box, or you can even go a little bit lower with your perlite and your water, and just make sure that this is enough water and does not sink into the perlite. So you may have to monitor that egg bin a little bit more closely. But once you get your eggs, you can put them on here. This is where we'll show you some pictures of other clutches that we have done this to in the past. We also like to use plastic toothpicks, not wooden toothpicks, but plastic toothpicks if you do have that stubborn egg that's super, super plump and likes to roll around inside of your bin. Using those couple toothpicks to kind of anchor it and make sure it doesn't move, you use this grid plus that toothpick to kind of wedge that roly-poly egg and make sure it doesn't roll and touch any of the wet sides so it does not mold or rot. I don't use wooden toothpicks only because I had one wooden toothpick that I used once and it actually left a mold line on the egg. It did eventually go away, but I just don't recommend using and leaving wooden ones in there. I have seen other people use wooden ones and leave them in there with great success, but I personally rather just use plastic. The other great thing about the plastic toothpicks is that you are able to sanitize them, clean them, and reuse them. So you're not being wasteful. So once you have your eggs in here, the next step is your cling wrap. So this is where I pull this sheet out. And you have a sticky side and a not so sticky side. So I place the sticky side down onto the rim of this, and I basically just run my fingers along here, and I make sure this is nice and tight. The reason why I want my cling wrap nice and tight is I don't want it to droop down. One of the things that you will see during the incubation process, especially when the eggs are getting very close to hatching, the eggs start to deflate. I got a cough. And during this deflating process, they actually release more moisture into the atmosphere of the container, and you'll see droplets, big droplets forming on the top of this plastic. So if that were to drip down, or there would be a pointed part where it has like the lowest part, the egg that is next to that spot could risk becoming moldy. The lid that I use for these Sterilite containers does have two little locking clips on the side. That's mainly just to make sure the lid stays on and that there is actually some pressure to the cling wrap so it doesn't lift if, say, I hit it with another bin by accident, or if I'm moving them around, that this doesn't just fall off and let too much air in to dry out my eggs. Something else with this setup, I do tend to open this up and kind of let it breathe or burp. During the incubation process, I'll probably go in there maybe 5 times total through the incubation process. And basically I open this up, I'll pull this back just a little bit, let it breathe, make sure there's not too much water on this. I might even wipe it down with a dry paper towel just to make sure that there's no dripping that happens. If I do cause a drip, I'll immediately absorb it from the egg's shell. And this would be a good time if you wanted to candle your eggs. Some people don't touch their eggs at all. I like to see some of the development just to make sure the health of each individual egg is doing well and that there's no issues going on within there. If I see an egg that may be failing or has weak veins, that would be my time to potentially move it out of this bin so that if it does die, it doesn't affect anybody else. But most of the time when you have an egg that does fail or just doesn't thrive, it doesn't necessarily affect any of the other eggs, even if it is touching it, but you do want to just, it's better to be safe than sorry. And then I will place my lid on top, and I have an identification card that I put with each one of my clutches that sits on top, or I used to even number each bin, and then I had a correlating card for it because I did lose a couple cards in my incubator ones. Something else I would absolutely recommend with incubating in any kind of substrate that you use. I have these combination hydrometer and thermometers that I actually put inside some of the bins, staggered through each shelf that I have because I have multi-shelves, and these tend to be stacked on top of each other. And I just like to make sure that their temperature is perfect, and 2, that their humidity is in a good range. It actually will alarm and send me a message or a notification on my phone telling me that one of the bins might be getting too dry or the temperature is getting too low. So I really, really like having that, especially because I'm not home all the time. Working, sometimes you thinking about these guys, it could be a crazy stormy day and you're wondering if you lost power in your house. This is one way to just keep an eye on them when you're away from home that I think is just a good peace of mind. This is actually one of the hydrometer thermometers that I use. It is by Govee. The app you can download on your phone, and like I said, you can monitor it and it shows you the peaks and the valleys or the constant temperature or the humidity that is going on all day. The cool thing about these is that you can number them also within your phone. So this one for me is number 2. So I know that I can be watching and know exactly which clutch that this specific one is in with. So I know exactly what is going on within that bin. So my incubator is set for 89 degrees. That can vary a little bit per your incubator because you want to make sure that your temperatures in your incubator, just because I keep mine at 89, it doesn't mean that your incubator is going to have to be at the set temperature. Every single year when I turn my incubator on, I let it stay on for almost a month before I'm expecting eggs, just so I can make sure I can fine tune or tweak anything that I might need to. Since my incubator does end up being slightly packed with these, I like to make sure every single level is at a good temperature. And some incubators will vary from top to bottom. So I even have fans in my incubator that circulate the air so that it's the same temperature throughout the entire thing. The ideal incubation temperature for ball python eggs is about 88 to 89. So when I keep my incubator at 89, it usually means that my eggs are sitting at a very nice, in the middle, 88.5. So I really like that. And the way I set up these bins, your ideal incubation humidity level is about 99% to 100%. So that's very high. So making sure you have an appropriate, proper egg bin is super important because you do not want those eggs deflating too quickly. My eggs stay nice and plump and very round up until about a week before they hatch, where they actually start to deflate at that final week. And that is when you know that your babies are on their way. At this temperature and humidity level, my hatchlings tend to pip at about 56 days, would say the average is. I've had them pip a little bit early, and I've had them go all the way to 59 days, but I would say most of them are right on the money at 56 days. I have been doing this exact setup for over 10 years, and I have had great success with it, but I would love to know how you guys set up your egg bins. If you do anything different, please let me know in the comments. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you next time.